Hello. In the previous devlog that we had, I was rigging a car model. It was going swimmingly until something very bad happened, and that's the reason I'm sitting with this box here. This is a new power supply that I need to install into my computer. So let's talk about that then. First, more important, look at these babies. Look at them. Look at this. This one's completely out. Yay! Yo, let's go! Yo. So this is my 6th devlog, or at least a lack of one, just because my computer was giving me issues, which is my half-hearted explanation as to why I haven't been able to do anything. But I did learn a couple of things that I thought I'd share with you guys. So I've been having very bad luck with editor crashes and just generally my PC just completely shutting off due to the high demand was putting on my system. Now, at least that's what I thought it was, and it took a little bit of troubleshooting to figure out what exactly was going on.
Pablo, you need to chill out. You're all up in my business. I can't do any work here.
Also, before you ask, I did build this computer myself, and by build I mean assemble the various computer parts built by other people, and yes, that's probably the reason why it's broken. I recently upgraded to a RTX 3080 and I put it into my X570 motherboard, and everything just worked except for a couple of things, and the couple of things being the drivers were still set up for my GTX 1080, which was giving me issues. Ended up reinstalling the entire Windows just to make sure that everything is set up correctly, which took a lot of time because I had to re-download all my software, activate my licenses, yes, because I do not pirate anymore. I never did. I do own licenses now because I'm an adult. Anyway, that took up quite a bit of time that I could have spent on building this game. Now, once I was done with that, I thought, okay, everything is going to go fine now. I've got this new graphics card. I was keen to test it out, and it was not the case. It ran fine for like a couple of weeks or so, and then all of a sudden, I started having these crashes. Not just Unreal Engine crashes, but my actual PC crashed. Like, the PC was still running, but the screens would go off, which was obviously the first thing that came to mind is graphics card is stuffed, but I was not willing to admit that because I bought it secondhand and I was not a fool that got scammed by some stranger on the internet. No sir, no. What I did was I started troubleshooting a bit. First off, I opened up my machine, I cleaned it out, removed all the dust, removed all the modules, put it back in its place, put my computer on, and same issue. So this was starting to get frustrating. The next thing I thought was, hey, maybe it's the power supply, because this RTX 3080 is obviously a lot more demanding in power than my old GTX 1080, so I did a bit of reading up and it seems that a 650 watt is not strong enough to power a RTX 3080, especially if you're drawing a lot of power from it. So I ordered a new 850 watt power supply, which I needed in anyway because it had that extra slot that my motherboard needed, which it didn't have. Don't know what it's used for, just like having all the slots filled. So at least that upgrade was done, and I was very happy because now it seemed a bit more stable until I had another crash. Now, having spent money on a power supply, and they're not cheap, especially not in South Africa, I was extremely frustrated, and that frustration grew inside of me like a little baby in a womb. The next thing I thought was, okay, well, maybe it's the RAM. Maybe something is bugging out in the RAM. Maybe there's a faulty module. So I took out some of the RAM slots, added them back, kind of rotated them around, same issue. Next thing I thought is, hey, okay, well, maybe it is the motherboard. Maybe there's something wrong with the circuitry, or, not supplying enough power from the power supply to the graphics card, because apparently I think I know things. I am the way which I don't, because it wasn't the motherboard. The reason I know it wasn't the motherboard is because I found the actual culprit. And the actual culprit was, in fact, the graphics card. I stumbled upon a video on YouTube, and I bequeathed my eyes upon its beauty. In the early 3000 series RTX cards, they sometimes have a spike in power consumption that spikes to around 900 watts, which if you don't have a 900 watt power supply, which I didn't buy because 1000 watt power supplies are extremely expensive, your PC will just shut down because it can't supply that millisecond of power to the graphics card. So this guy had a solution. Just undervolt your graphics card. Now, I've been underclocking it. Like, I know what underclocking is. I know what overclocking is from my gaming days, you know? Well, I'm still technically a gamer. What I then did was actually undervolt it, and it's far simpler than it sounds. It's actually just fiddling around with your voltage graph in something like MSI Afterburner. There's a bunch of free software that you can use, and I'll link the description up here in case you're having issues yourself. Now, what was really frustrating is that I was running stress tests, 3D Mark, I was running games, everything was working fine except for Unreal Engine, especially when I did renders. And I think it is just because Unreal Engine uses every morsel of VRAM that it possibly can find on your graphics card. And what that does is it just causes your graphics card to go all out because it's using everything it possibly can. So that was one of the most satisfying feelings, being able to use the engine in its full glory, doing beautiful renders without having to worry that my machine was going to spontaneously shut down. How liberating that was, I was presented with another issue. That issue was when I tried to package my game, stuff didn't work. I was getting warnings, I was getting errors, and just randomly it would just stop compiling without being very explicit as to what went wrong. Turns out that you need to resolve your warnings before doing your compilations as well. They are there for a reason. So after a lot of reading up, I ended up reinstalling the plugins, adding these plugins to my scenes again, which was a bit tedious, and then it worked. I was able to compile my game, and at this stage all it is a man sitting in a car driving to a destination. So it's been an extremely frustrating 2 weeks, but now I've got it resolved and I'm very excited to continue working on the game until I bludgeon my head full force into the next wall of pain. So that's it for this dev blog. I know I didn't really do that much, but it still feels very satisfying having this game at least in a running state that I can show people, right? Like, I know not a lot is happening, but in the next couple of videos, what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be focusing on getting this sequence running correctly with the sequencer. And that includes moving the person along with the car, and then also having the person being able to interact in the game while moving in a sequence. So I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work, but I am pretty sure I can get it going. So I'm not too stressed about it, but it's going to be a fun one. So stick around. If you did like this video, leave a comment if you want to see more of this. Yeah, tag along for the ride. It's going to be fun. And as always, happy game development. See you next time.